So when I was a little girl, my mom moved me in with my grandparents into a neighborhood of approximately 8 little boys and 2 little girls, and the 2 little girls were me and my sister. So you can only imagine my dismay when I realized that I would not be playing princess, dress up, or makeup with the neighborhood boys. Instead, I would be eating dirt, playing video games, and falling out of trees, which is exactly what happened. So in the middle is me when I was little. I haven't changed. And to the left and the right are 2 of the boys who I played with in the neighborhood, who I am still friends with to this day. To the left is Josh Irby. Well, to the right is Josh Irby. And to the left is Jared Fromeyer, and we are still best friends to this day. But getting back to my story, so I caved in and I played these boy games. So I climbed trees, and yes, I did eat dirt, and I also got addicted to video games thanks to these people. And childhood was pretty great.
No shame in this.
But playing with boys, as we all know, we sometimes get hurt. So often I would get hurt playing with them. I would fall off a tree and get cut up, or I would fall down playing tag and I would scrape my knee. Well, my mom would carry around these tin of Band-Aids, and so when I got hurt, I would go to her and she'd be like, "Injured again, Sammy?" "Yeah, Mom." And she'd put a Band-Aid on me. And that was that, and I went back to playing. But you know, what I didn't know as a little kid was that if you leave Band-Aids on for too long, you kind of make the injury worse because you're not giving it enough room to grow. And so being a little kid, I didn't realize this, so I would leave my Band-Aids on for as long as I could, and they would either fall off or my skin would get wrinkly, like when you stay in the bathtub and you kind of get pruny. That's what would happen. So 8th grade year in the spring, I received an injury where there was no room for me to place a Band-Aid on. And looking back on it, I think to myself, maybe I could have prevented this if I knew more about genetics, or if I knew more about psychology, or if I just knew more about what was going on in my life. But I realize now that I didn't, and I couldn't do anything about it. So 8th grade year in spring, I had a severe nervous breakdown. And like all great breakdowns, it happened during band rehearsal. So I excused myself, I went to the girls' bathroom, and I proceeded to pass out. And while I passed out, I hit my head on the countertop. And I was there for an hour or so, and no one had found me until a little bit later. And so when I was found, I was rushed to Children's Hospital. And I think this is one of the most vivid memories I have, because I remember being in the stretcher as a little kid, and I remember looking up at the ceiling of Children's Hospital, and I saw fish floating all around me. And I started crying, because as a little kid, I thought that when you saw a fish on the ceiling, that meant you died and you were to go to see God. So I was about, I know, I was that kid. So I was about 12 at the time, and long story short, I realized I wasn't dying. It was fish painted onto the ceiling, which were supposed to calm you as you went into the emergency room. In fact, it did the opposite for me. But moving on. So I was hospitalized for a while, and I was in and out of therapy for a few months. And it took a while, but I was ultimately and finally diagnosed with having type 2 bipolar disorder. And so I was told by Children's that I would have 3 modes from now on. I would either be manic, slightly, which means I would be always off my rocker and always wanting to do very inappropriate things. I would be mildly depressed, so I would never feel happy or joyful. Or I would be normal, which is kind of in the middle, but it's still kind of not where I was before. And I was devastated. I stopped seeing myself as this person who had all of these wonderful qualities and saw myself as this person who had a chemical imbalance, and that I had these qualities because of that. And I fell into a very dark place, and I stopped thinking that I was worthy of love after my diagnosis, because who would love someone that's broken? Who would love someone that's not like everyone else? So it was after that that I started getting into these relationships that were lesser forms of love, but at the time, this is what I thought love was. I thought love, and I was told that it was a physical thing, and that love needs to be physical for it to be real and not emotional. So I entered into very abusive relationships, which at the time I didn't realize were abusive because I was never told any better. So that happened for a little while, And I was also told that the only way to get better from my diagnosis was to either take medicine twice a day for the rest of my life, or to enter into this rigorous therapy program where at the end of it I would have the skills to deal with myself adequately and I wouldn't need medicine. This program has a 15 to 10% success rate. So you can only imagine my further dismay when I found this out. And I hated myself. I sincerely and I genuinely hated myself, and I hated everything that I was. And it got to a self-loathing point where I hit such rock bottom that I was literally being thrown against a wall by a person who told me that they were my lover. And it was in that moment that I realized that this is not love. This is in fact the opposite of it, and what I had been looking for was to give love that I did have and to receive love, which I was not getting. So I decided to go into the program. I accepted the challenge because I didn't want to be, it's not that I'm opposed to medication, but I didn't want to have to burden my family with having to pay for that. It was cheaper to go through therapy, and it just made more sense. So I entered the therapy program, and it was hard. Therapy was the hardest thing I've ever had to do up to this point, and there were many times where I wanted to quit and I wanted to give up because it was hard, and there was a lot of back progress, and when I thought I would hit this and I was okay, I wasn't. But in 2012 I graduated high school, and when I graduated high school I also graduated from my therapy program, and it was through that program that I met two of the most important people in my life. So his name is also Thomas, and he was the advisor who tailored the program to just me, to who I was. And this is Adrienne, and she was my black mama, and she would come to my house and make very inappropriate fried chicken jokes about herself, and that's how she would open our therapy sessions, and she was one of the best people I've ever had the chance of experiencing in my life. So it was hard, but you know, looking back on my experiences, I've also realized that these experiences have made me a little weird. I can tell people don't like how I present myself and sometimes who I am. I can see it in their eyes when I'm talking. They can tell like there's something that I have that is not like them, and I can see it when I talk in class sometimes. I can see it in my classmates' eyes. And you know, it's something I live with while others live without. But it's also something that's made me very humbled and very compassionate and very good at being a cynic. And kind of going through all of this, I've learned that self-love is something you have to constantly strive towards. It's never, you can go to the next one. Yeah. It's never anything that you can just achieve overnight, and it's not an emotion that someone else can make you feel. And we find self-love through our relationships and through our actions and through the words that we choose to give others from ourselves. But those are also the places where it's taken away from us. And I think what I've learned is when we feel like when we feel like we don't deserve love, that's what we do. We shut love out and we take lesser forms of it. We become numb to what love really is, and we are unable to identify it even when it's on a small level. And I think that the first step to loving yourself is to let love in. And it's letting love in every possible way that you know how, and it's letting love in the small places. And it's also about being vulnerable to yourself and to others, to admitting that you are deserving, you are loved, and you deserve everything that you want from love. And so I'd like to challenge you all. I want to challenge you all to love yourself, because I know some of you might sit in your room at night alone and you might think to yourself, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve what I want, but you do. You are worthy. And I want you to know that, coming from me. You are loved. But what I also want you to know that you need to stop putting Band-Aids on. And you need to take the Band-Aids. Because what I've learned about wounds is that you should nurture them, and you should let them heal, and you should love them. But you should also take that Band-Aid and you should rip it off. And once that Band-Aid is ripped off, I welcome you. And I say to you, you're free to let love in. Thank you.
part where you guys get to bombard us. You know, not too many interview questions.
Or take a break to go cry.
Yeah.
I'm like about to cry, but I'm laughing because that's how I deal with it.
Any questions?
Between me and Thomas's story.
Yeah.
So Thomas, how does your extended family get along with each other now? Is it still?
Pretty well. I mean, yeah, like, my grandmother, she's the only living grandparent out of the whole set now. So she comes and visits us every so often, and like I said, like she and my mom like get along really well. They talk all the time. My mom like calls her back in Taiwan and things like that. My mother's sister, the one that actually the first time that my dad went to go look for her, she comes and visits every so often too, and we all just get along. It's not that big of a deal now. Is that it?
It's free for all, guys. Next anything.
So how long was the break in between, like, the initial breakup and the marriage proposal?
See, I was talking to my mom about that, and she said that they technically never broke up, just because like I actually had like I had a very, very lengthy discussion with her about this, because I don't remember what the term is. It's like 分手, which is like literally like 手 means hand, and 分手 is like to like separate hands. So like she said like they never technically broke up, but like it's mostly just because of the distance that like they lost contact. So they graduated in 1979 and they got married in 1991. Anybody good at math here? I'm the anti-stereotype. I'm not good at math. Okay, 12 years.
So
yeah.
if you're not in a relationship yet, wait 12 years. Yeah, it says love.
It says love, y'all. I was like, okay.
It says love. I didn't rip it off my face for no reason.
I mean, I have a question for Sammy.
Okay,
Do you still keep in contact with Thomas and Adrian?
Actually, Adrian has retired from therapy, and we no longer talk as much as we'd like to. But Thomas here actually has his own practice in the city, and when I was a freshman, I actually went and saw him, and I told him that I was doing okay, and to let him know that he did a good job and that it was money well spent. So yeah, if you need psychotherapy, go to Thomas. Awesome. Not this one.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to help, but I'm no professional.
Sammy, you're my therapist.
Yes.
Just curiosity, the therapy, what was that like? If you don't mind me asking, how long was it? What did it involve?
So I was entered into therapy when I was in 8th grade, and I was not without therapy until high school. So it basically involved stressful situations is what it involves.
Nice save.
We're good people.
Okay.
Don't go breaking.
So basically the theory of the medicine was that whenever I got a mood swing, I would take medicine to regulate it. That way when it happened, it would still happen, but I wouldn't feel it as intensely. And therapy